Hello, everyone. This is the AI Pressure Cooker Live. Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you're dialing in today. So today we are going to talk about a topic that is close to my heart, which is service design. But before we get there, I just wanted to share a couple of my observations of what I'm seeing and to just provide a context and then kick us off with our special guest. So for the last 30 years or so, I think that we could be really proud that we achieved something incredible, which is designing software. So we design screens, user journeys, clicks, onboarding, interactions. And if you really think about the best service that you've experienced the last time you had this chance, most likely what would come to mind is that you didn't really notice it, because we were so good at optimizing first for usability, then for the customer experience, then for mobile. But now, thanks to AI, we have a new challenge. I think that we no longer can only think about interactions, but now we have a new dimension that requires optimization, which is this delegated work. And you may think that this shift is rather simple or small, but I would argue that this fundamentally changes everything. And in the past couple of episodes in the AI Pressure Cooker with our guests, we spoke about trust, we spoke about product decisions, we spoke about customer experience. But when I had a chance to think about where are we heading with this conversation, one thing was really clear, that they all converge into this bigger question that I want to unpack today. What happens when AI becomes part of the service itself? And I really needed a very good designer to help us with this. So I invited Marco Torrente from you and your customers to come join us today. So Marco, welcome. Super happy
Hello.
that you're here. And
Thanks for
before
having me.
we dive into the topic, maybe you can just introduce briefly yourself and what brought you to service design for those who never met you.
Yeah, thanks, Grazi. So, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm Marco. I live in The Hague. I'm service designer now since 15 years. I design and improve existing services. So basically, people call me when they need help with, first of all, understanding of their customers, right? How they experience their services currently, because lots of businesses, they don't have a clear picture of how their services actually are perceived by customers. So I do a lot of research, and then not only produce a report at the end, but also kind of visualize it in either a journey or a service blueprint, where I invite the team to really do that together with me. And the company I work for is For You and Your Customers. We are basically an implementation partner for all things of digital change. And we use a model, the exploded view model, that where my work actually bases upon a lot. And maybe you can show it quickly, Krasi, then I can quickly explain it. So this is kind of also the red thread for this conversation, because I think this model is really helpful in a lot of, let's say, projects or digital projects. It consists of 6 layers, right? Starts all the way at the top at your customer, which means kind of when you design a service or you want to understand a service that you're working on, you need to understand, okay, what customers are interacting with that service, right? On which channels, so that's the experience layer, right? So which channels are used to make that service available to customers, right? So for instance, if I want to fly to London, I need to book a flight ticket, so therefore I need a website or I need an app, right? So this is kind of the whole interaction that happens between the customer and the organization. And then all of the 4 layers below are basically orchestration layers by the organization. So you have the organization itself, where teams are working on delivering that service with their goals, their tasks, etc., which segues into the performance, which is essentially are the processes that are needed to deliver a service. The systems, that's your CRM, your ERP systems, needed to make that happen. And then, of course, last but not least, the data, right? So you need to have like a data structure in place in order to make sure you show the relevant information to the customer at the right point in their journey, right? So this model looks very simple, but it's kind of, when you start on a project, especially on a service-related project, and also we do a lot of workshops with this model. It really helps align the team and to find a common language, right? And to place challenges where they are at in the specific layers. So that's why I think it's really helpful.
And it's also, in my opinion, quite a good and a powerful visualization to actually understand when I say that AI is going to fundamentally change how we design the surface once we get into this delegated task or certain kind of automation. I think that typically what comes to mind and what we usually worry about are the first two layers related to the customer or the channel itself. But thanks to this model that Marco was kindly enough to share, actually you can begin to understand how big the complexity is and why we have to actually rethink some of the fundamental components of how we approach services and what is at stake. But before we continue unwrapping this model, I actually wanted to ask you, 6 months ago, people were skeptical about agents, and me included. But now it's very different, and the dynamic and the pace of change that is happening is really staggering, and it's very hard to even comprehend. So with such a compressed timelines, from you as a service designer, what actually made you realize that we've crossed the line in which agents became a thing? Is there a specific instance that comes to mind when this happened?
Yeah, I remember in January, I was at the Schiphol airport here in Amsterdam, and I was just, waiting for my flight, and I was bored. Just took my phone, and I have X, or Twitter, now X, installed, and I haven't looked at it in months. And then I decided, let's look at it again. Let's see what's up, because I was bored. And then all of a sudden, like, all of my feed was full with this OpenClaw thing, right? So everyone was talking about it. It's the new thing, the agent. I heard agents before, but I never really understood what it is. And I somehow got into it. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and and then I installed it because I realized, hey, I have an old laptop at home. It sits in the drawer. It's not used anymore. So I took the plunge and installed OpenClaw on it. And I have to say, it was quite a hassle to get it running, and also kind of to make it in a way that it lives up to its expectations. So that was quite a challenge. But then it made me realize that this is kind of really powerful, because it kind of changes the whole picture. Because the thing that I just showed you with the exploded view is like, okay, you have the customer, and then you have the channel, right? And then today we interact with these channels, with websites, with apps, etc. But now I can just delegate things to OpenClaw if I wanted to, right? I can still interact with websites, of course, and I think that's still going to take a while until that's fully rolled out to everyone and mainstream. But it really showed me kind of, wow, you can really think of your end goal, right? What is your end goal? Let's say my end goal is improve my retirement plan. And then it maybe asks you a few questions, but it does the thing. So, and that changes fundamentally to where we design products, right? Because right now we design them for every step or every action that is taken in the journey. But with agents, you start at the end. So it's a goal like a goal-oriented design, right? So you start at the end, and then you don't need to design the interactions in that detail anymore. And that's the fundamental shift that I have experienced. I know you should take it with a grain of salt. It's not mainstream yet, so we're still away from this a few years, I guess, or months, I would say. With AI, everything goes so fast, but yeah.
But I think that you bring a really important topic, because as a service designer, one thing that we have to really carefully consider now and change a little bit our mindset and approach is indeed starting with this goal or the customer outcome. And I think for the first time, thanks to AI and the agentic work, we actually can live up to this promise of delivering customer outcomes. However, this is not as simple as it sounds. And I wanted to ask you, what is the challenge from your perspective as a service designer? What is so difficult once we begin with the goal at first and not worry about the whole interaction steps and the model really changes?
Yeah, I think especially when you're, I guess when you're working on a product, right? You have like this maybe technical view on it, but or maybe just a business view on it. But a product always sits kind of in a broader context of the user, right? So it's always kind of the question: how does the user get to this product, and how does he or she use it? And there's always a journey involved, right? So oftentimes we fall into the trap when designing products. We focus only on the product, but yeah, it's really important to think about the entire journey. And I have a really, I think, a good example, because I read Build from Tony Fadell. He's the inventor of the iPod and the iPhone, and yeah, the iPod itself was obviously a success, but not before they announced iTunes. But first of all, iTunes was available only for Mac users, and Macs back then they cost like $2,000. So this
They
iPod,
still do.
yeah, they still do. Yeah, you get them cheaper also, but yeah, all of a sudden this iPod was not only a few $100s, but it needed someone to have a Mac, $2,000 Mac, where they can install iTunes. But what made them realize, and Tony made that suggestion back then, was we need to create iTunes for Windows users, and that whole shift was really liberating and actually created success for the iPod. So in that sense, what I'm meaning is kind of, it's really important to think about the journey and even the ecosystem where your product sits in, and not only about the product itself.
Mm. And I know that in some of your work, you often, how to say, when I read your articles, you flag this idea that as much as we are excited, and rightfully so, we have to focus on the customer, the so-called the interaction part of it, or the front. We should not forget the back side of it, which also kind of determines the success once you have the processes, the architecture, the system, the way of collaboration. So how do you see the tension between the two now that AI is so much expected to be part of the service in many industries? Do you see an opportunity to finally marry the two properly and balance them, or do you potentially envision even more fragmentation and challenges because of the dominance of the customer facing as opposed to the internal stuff?
Yeah, I mean, before AI, there was kind of, we had the two-actor model. So let's say you have the customer and you have the organization and employees, right? But now you end up having a four-actor model, which is basically kind of the user or the customer. Then you have maybe the personal AI assistant of the customer. Then you still have the employees, right, that run the businesses and work in organizations. But then you also have an organizational side uh, agent, right? So these can be your chatbots that you're interacting with, and you have to decide actually for those four actors, and that makes it quite complex. And I think the whole role of design and also kind of the things that we have to take into consideration is kind of to shift away from designing pixels towards creating the, let's say, the guardrail for AI to act purposefully, profitably, and efficiently, right? So that's kind of the main shift, and it shifts from the front stage into the backstage, right? So that you make sure data is accurate, that you make sure that agents have access to that data, so that they can make good decisions and they can be of value. So there, I feel like there's a big shift happening. Yeah.
Mm. And it's really also very tempting these days, just because we have the capabilities to build, to keep on building, and it goes
Mm.
very quickly. Over the weekend, you can have a flashy feature or whatever extension to your product, but also the danger remains that we are overbuilding in a way that we are confusing the users. We create even more technical debt, let alone
Yeah.
customer experience debt. So what is your view? How should teams actually try to balance a little bit this from a service design standpoint of view? What are
Mm.
the biggest challenges or risks rather?
Yeah, exactly. No, you're exactly on the spot, because as you mentioned, it's so easy to create it's so easy to create like a digital product nowadays. A website is done in seconds. You can create features in seconds. So that is really then tempting to just implement features that users actually don't want. And I think user research and understanding your customers, how they use your product, is more than ever important, because you I guess as a product team or as a product manager, you're really tempted to just design the feature, because it's so easy nowadays. But the question is, do users really care? Do they really need that feature? And unless you know it, then it's kind of it's a real danger, and creates a burden, because then your support lines run hot. The users asking questions, and that kind of eats away your operations, and
Resources,
that's not
yes.
resources, exactly. So that's why there's a real danger there, and that's why it's important to do research continuously.
And thinking about the how AI is actually changing the way we build services, in what I find really interesting with this segmentation with the 6 layers that we showed earlier in the discussion, is this visibility. And do you actually perceive to be some of these layers to be in conflict with one another? Do we have to rethink this model because of AI? Does it change?
Yeah, maybe you can actually quickly show the one with the additional layer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's also a LinkedIn post I did. And the current interaction is basically the 6 models, right? But there's a new interaction coming, which is the one with the personal agent, so to say. It can be like the personal agent, but also the agent from the organization. But here I mean actually the personal agent, because the interaction can shift from the customer interacting with your website to the agent doing the thing. For instance, I have an example from my personal agent. So our daughter goes to school, and they have a school menu, and it's super buried in their website, in the school's website. And I always forget kind of to look kind of what is my daughter actually eating at school, right? Such a fundamental question. And I keep forgetting to look at the website. It's so buried, and then I found it once, I pasted the link. I asked my agent to share with me, to extract the menu and share it with me every single week. And it's a minor task, of course, but it gives me value because then I know what she eats, right? And that's kind of the interaction I mean with, that new interaction layer, because of course I could have looked at it myself, but first I forget, then I'm bored, I'm lazy. And it's kind of administrative work that is a burden. And therefore, for these kinds of things, I think agents are really powerful and useful. This morning I read from Lou Downey. She is the author of Good Services and her upcoming book Bad
Bad
Services.
services, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And she mentioned, she was quoting a study where they mentioned UK citizens spent 15 billions of hours per year on administrative work. And that's just like, it's insane, right? Like all these little things, that take up your time is kind of a burden. And that's where I feel like these agents can really help you, to think of other things, but don't do the administrative stuff. Spend more time with your kids. That's more valuable instead of doing these things. So yeah.
If we actually think a little bit about this shift with the model, if I may bring it back,
Yeah.
if it's okay with you, Marco, I wanted to ask you, but looking at this new dynamic that all of a sudden we have actually between us and the channel, this agent, so to say, what is your perspective? How should we think about customer research and getting insights and actually understanding where is the opportunity space? Because in a way, we now have additional, or soon would have additional layer between our product and the end customer, meaning that instead of the end customer, majority of the interaction would potentially happen via an agent. So how could we still preserve the customer centricity and truly understand the problem without this intermediary in a way that it may block our view or it may distort a little the reality?
Yeah,
Do you
of course.
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, there's always the question kind of what the user trusts the agent to do, right? So there's as soon as you talk, especially with OpenClaw, I think it's kind of talking to a person, right? It's really talking to someone who sits at the other end of your Telegram chat, and you're talking to, and it's kind of the way it communicates. It really builds up this trust layer. But there's always the question kind of what you actually trust your agent to do. So there's always this research question kind of, yeah, what does the user trust the agent to do in that context where it uses my product or my service? So and there was a study done by NN Group where they gave customers a Quen. It's a Chinese LLM. They gave customers Quen to order a drink, I think. And those customers, they really didn't have any clue kind of what the agent is and what it does. They just had a test. They gave the customers a task, the users a task. And as soon as the agent revealed their addresses, they thought their addresses were leaked, right? So that really kind of is that trust layer, because you really have to make sure that that you're really transparent about what information the agent has, right? And where those boundaries are for users, right? What do I really trust the agent in terms of my information or my data? And I think those questions are really fundamental. And then there's also the technical questions, but that goes beyond the user questions. Yeah.
On this point of trust, I think that what I'm seeing in the last couple of months is this new, so to say, emergent need for actually product to own the trust layer, and it's no longer just enough to worry about trust, thinking from the point of view of the customer experience or the user journey, but almost you have to, when you build and think about the features, you have to embed the trust layer already at these early stages at the foundational level. Otherwise, especially if you are AI first, it becomes too late to think about trust at the end of it. And going back to this example with your daughter and the meal plan and open cloth, I was wondering, did anything surprise you once you started working with the agent? Because I know you've been doing that for quite a while now. What changed your mind about automation and agents? Any insights you can share?
No, I mean, at some point, I really realized that that this is kind of a personal service for you, right? Because it does things on your behalf, right? And I really see it as a service, because a service in its basic terms is it allows someone to do something, right? So it's very fundamental or basic explanation, but that's kind of what a service is. And it's like that one example I shared, with the weekly meal plan from the school was my first epiphany moment. And the way it communicates is really different from when you use Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, because those models, they really are designed to keep you there, right? They want you to use their tokens. They want to make money. That's the business model, right? So that's why every answer ends with a question like, do you want me to do this or do you want me to do that? And OpenClaw is different in that, because it's an open source project, and it's an OpenClaw foundation behind it. So there's not OpenAI behind it. So it's OpenClaw foundation behind it, and that's why the communication style is very, very different. So it's like really like someone sitting at the other end and really helping you out. And then the other thing is, one example I can also share is that. First of all, I was a bit hesitant to, connect it to my email and calendar, but eventually I gave in. And now, what a really nice thing that it does is, like, we get a lot of emails from the school, and in those emails and even in PDF attachments, there's like lots of dates in there, right? Even deadlines where you have to sign up your child for, an event or holiday care package or whatever. And sometimes, it's a lot. It's again, this administrative burden. And now I have like a cron job, which is basically kind of a job that runs every week or twice a week, that scans the emails that have a specific tag. They extract the dates and put it in the calendar. It's all automatically done. It was a lot of administrative work, and it's now automated, which is really nice. And what made me also realize is that you have to do, and what we do as service designers or researchers a lot is, you do user research with the customers or other users, but you have to do an introspective user research yourself, which means you have to identify your own pain points. And that really helps in designing these agent loops, so to say, because then you can really create something valuable where you realize, okay, this is an actual administrative pain that I have. I want to automate it. Please help me do that, right? And that's kind of the real value. And that's, for me, that's a service essentially, right? There's no organization behind it, but it's kind of it allows me to do something, and it's goal oriented. So it's kind of ticking all the boxes for me, and it's quite amazing. Yeah.
And did this experience also changed your behavior in a certain way? I'm wondering, did it things that you used to resist? You spoke about the trust and opening your inbox. Did the experience have any other behavior implications in your day-to-day, or how you even think about agents?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was all kind of about experimentation, right? I mean, I knew this was powerful, but then I also knew that this trust layer is really kind of thin, let's say, and then then you get like you realize, okay, you even share more than you should because this like, agent runs locally on your machine, but the model that is behind it is in the cloud, right? So I use OpenAI for that, and then of course the things that you share in there get processed by their servers. So what made me realize is, okay, I also want to use local models, and I also did that, let's say, for health related things that I think crosses the line where I wouldn't share it with a provider that is in the US and it's cloud based. So all of the health related things, I have an own agent which is also in OpenClaw, but it's a second agent that runs on a local model, and it can even run without internet, and that's also fantastic. It can't do that many things, right? So it's not that agent magic that we all know from these frontier models, but still for small certain tasks, it's super valuable. And also I encourage to try that out. And it's still, you can use it from your Telegram, chat with it whenever you want. It requires the computer to be running, of course, but that's something that has changed, I would say, yeah, when I use it.
And apart from this aspect of the trust boundary and how important is actually to rethink the whole approach, bringing this learning into the corporate and the business world, do you see any other immediate urgent aspects where teams working on service design have to start addressing or discussing? Because I know that many companies are pursuing and thinking how to improve the service layer, so to say, how to use AI in a way that makes sense for their users. Are there any practical advice you can give them that would make the job easier, so to say, in a very critical and much more demanding organizational space, where we have
Yeah,
to
I would.
respect so many boundaries and regulations and trust issues?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of facets to it. I think the first one is, and that's why I also did it, is experiment yourself. I think that's the main thing, right? I think that's kind of the foundation to really know what these models are capable of, and also what the local models are capable of. Because in organizational settings, maybe you work in I don't know, in a EU organization and you can't use frontier models. So what do you do then? And let's say if you want to use AI for customer research, for customer experience, even, how do you deal with that limitation? When you can't access these frontier models, you have to set up a system yourself, locally, right? And I've been experimenting with that as well, to think about, okay, let's imagine I have a client that is not allowed to use these local models, or even let's imagine you use a model and it all of a sudden gets banned, like Fable from Claude. You have to have a system in place that you can plug and play into different models wherever they are needed, depending on like what is available to you as an organization. And that's also something I'm experimenting with, because yeah, there's of course lots of insight management tools, tools for customer research, tools for customer experience management, where you do journey management, right? But yeah, sometimes you just want to use your AI of choice. Maybe you can't use these fancy tools because they are in the US, because they are expensive. That's a costs are also an issue. And that's why I think it's also important to really have kind of this backup plan, where you have a system in place that also runs locally, and where you can just move to another provider in one of these instances. Yeah, if something happens, if a model gets if its access gets denied or anything like that. So yeah, you have to make yourself resilient in a sense.
And also the other important direction that I think pretty soon anyone in the software world is going to have to face is, just like we got really accustomed to the instant delivery through Amazon, and we keep transferring those capabilities from one industry to another, even if they have nothing in common. I think those users or customers out there that experience the difference between just a software or interaction model where you still click a button and you get a result, versus the goal-oriented one where you begin with your end goal. I think pretty soon they're going to demand this also from other software services that we are typically used to. And this is going to change a lot of how products and experiences are designed. Do you think that this shift is going to accelerate and we're going to see this outcome first approach sooner rather than later? Do you think organizations are ready to ride this wave?
Yeah, I mean, that's all again coming down to the fundamentals, right? When we, let's say, work on journeys or service blueprints, we always encourage our customers to work with outcomes, especially because what we really want is kind of measuring the experience and measuring with KPIs. But then there's always kind of this KPI discussion, what do we measure and which KPI do we measure? But lots of these discussions can be avoided when you have outcomes defined. And what I wanted to show actually at the very last image maybe is so the exploded view, as I mentioned, is kind of our foundational model, but that's also, you can see it as like from front the customer to the back the data. But we also use it as a service blueprint, right? So this structure really works well for the service blueprint, and then you can consider it from beginning to end, like how does the service evolve from beginning to end. And what I just mentioned with the outcomes, right? On the very bottom, we have the data layer in the service blueprint, and that's kind of the KPI layer also, because that's where your KPIs sit. But if there are no outcomes on top, then it kind of becomes really, really dangerous, because then you have a KPI discussion and then you really don't know what you want to achieve in each of the phases. So that's why I think, having these fundamentals straight is really, really important to link these outcomes also with your business goals. I think that's really important.
And this also reminds me that moving or getting into this trajectory, accelerating the work around customer outcomes, kind of intersects or is in parallel with the AI transformation happening in many teams right now, in many organizations, that are asked to not just get familiar and increase the literacy, but also deliver results. And I see almost like an intersection between proving the return on investment on AI linked to actually delivering these outcomes for organizations. And a good example that comes to mind is the transformation that happened with Intercom, now Fin, who, once they transition into the AI first customer service, not only they did that, but they also changed the business model. So it's not about selling seats in the typical software terms, but ensuring that you are only paid when the outcome for the customer is achieved, meaning closed tickets or resolution or whatever that is equivalent on your side. So this is, in my opinion, a very exciting times right now to be in service design, because outcomes matter, but also it is possible to deliver these outcomes with AI automation and all of those tools in our disposal. So in a way, it's really, I'm finishing here on the optimistic note, despite all the pressure and the grilling that is out there in many industries and teams. Do you feel the same when you think about where the service design is heading and what is next?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's always kind of difficult to answer, because in like AI, everything happens so fast. It's kind of really difficult to predict. But again, the things that I mentioned already, is, I think what's important is that you're really up to speed on these models, what they can do. Think about what you do right now, and where AI can really help. Either helping with your administrative tasks, right? But also being a coworker, right? Like for me, for instance, I work alone quite often, so then it's kind of really helpful for me to have a second pair of eyes. But yeah, that's actually the thing that really helps me. So I see it more as a coworker, actually, right? As a collaborative, creative thinking partner, so to say. And it really also changes as soon as you talk with it instead of typing. So I always try to talk as much as possible, and which makes it also more efficient. But yeah, I mean, what matters nevertheless is kind of that you have a kind of an artifact where you have a common ground to discuss things, to discuss strategy with your team, and then kind of use that common ground for AI work, or yeah.
But I also think that service designers have now this opportunity to be a little bit more strategic, in a sense, to be the ones guiding the organization to think big. And like the example that you gave with Tony Fadell, I think it's really a powerful one to consider the whole ecosystem and where does your product sit, and not just limit yourself in terms of a product category or even the service itself, but to think truly holistically, how are you going to deliver these outcomes, and what else is required for this to succeed. So for me, it's a great opportunity to marry the two and see where we're heading next, and hopefully we'll see more and more nice interactions that are powerful enough for us to do these repetitive tasks and automate, but automate with a purpose, and always having the customer experience in mind.
Exactly, yeah.
And then last but not least, think very critically about the trust layer and how to embody trust in all the steps of the user journey, but more importantly, not to forget this deep view that Marco, I'm very grateful that you shared with the different layers and the additional 7 now through the agents, because the job is not just to worry about the stages of the customer journey, but really to go deep and make sure that the alignment happens on every single layer, all the way from the customer to the data and the KPIs. And do you have one last thought or comment before we close the session today? I know that you wrote something that really intrigued me when you said that the chatbot waits for you, but the service works for you. Do you have any other interesting observation these days, thanks to your experience with the agents? A light bulb moment or something?
Light bulb moment I had when I discovered, I mean, it's other topic, but what light bulb moment was really when I discovered this LLM wiki, which is a wiki concept from Karpathy. He's a lead developer at now Anthropic, used to be OpenAI. And what I did is I created a wiki, a service design wiki based on the concept. So I can ingest kind of articles, anything service design related. It can be any topic really, but for me it was service design related. I have now, I think, close to 100 sources in there. And what's amazing is that it connects existing content with the new one, and then it enriches it. And it's just fascinating, and it's just like wow, yeah. And what I so even that, you know, I see these, like this wiki is even a database for me, although I read it, right? But it's like really hard to read all the things, all the you know, the wiki pages. And what I did was I created a card game out of it. So there's kind of, it's a memory, so you can click yeah, what's the concept and the explanation, then you can match the two, and you always have to open the cards, and it's a service design based card game, and it's really funny, and that's the whole thing, you know. It's just like such an amazing time to be alive and use these tools, and yeah, it's really fantastic. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing, and I'm now very curious, so I need to check it out right after our conversation to see what this is about. But for now, thanks everyone who joined the AI Pressure Cooker Live, and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you also from my side.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.